Thank you, Jackie. I'd be delighted to do that, and welcome everyone who's on the line with us. Thank you so much for being here today. So, I'm particularly delighted to be part of this first year program, an early reading program, for one very personal reason. It was a freshman year book that changed my life completely. I had started college as a language and linguistics major because I really wanted to find a career path that let me explore and see the world, and not just punch my passport, but really understand the languages, landscapes, the cultures of our world. And I thought languages would be my ticket to that because I happen to have a natural flair for them. But I was forced my first year to read a book about marine biology. It was the only book used in a freshman class. My French professor recommended I take this class to check the box, fulfill my general education requirement in an easy and sort of fun way that wasn't too hard for a French major. And this book was a combination coming of age tale by Sir Alistair Hardy, a voyage down the whole length of the Atlantic to Antarctica, and an expose of how you do science at sea. And I was completely taken right away with that sort of adventurous and inquisitive life. It was the life model I had always dimly had in mind, but never knew how to pursue. I never knew really how to achieve. What pathway, what studies get you a Jacques Cousteau, or how do you do that? So Great Waters, as it was called, turned me 180 degrees, turned me into an oceanographer, and set me on the path that I talk about in Handprints on Hubble. Now, I want to hasten to say that I did not set out to write a memoir. I've never really deeply believed that the world has to know all of my story. But I did want to use my life story for a different purpose. Some of my favorite things to read are books that take me to different places, as Jackie said, show me a world I haven't been in or wouldn't even have known about, but also reveal to me or show to me an overlooked chapter of history and some overlooked characters whose names perhaps did not get written in the conventional histories, but whose contributions were actually absolutely pivotal to the world as I have known it. And that's what I wanted to do with Handprints on Hubble, because what people tend to know about Hubble is it got put into space, it couldn't see straight, daring astronauts fixed it, and now, wow, look at all these dazzling pictures. Those are all absolutely true and correct elements of the story, but there's a pivotal chapter before it ever got to space that has made all of that possible. And it's the work of a small number of really clever, creative, inventive engineers that both set Hubble up to be repairable in orbit and truly invented, created out of ideas and drawings, the tools that made that possible. I had the privilege of working alongside those engineers for 5 years of my astronaut career, from 1985 to 1990, because my job as one of the crew members that was going to take Hubble to orbit was to be sure that we, NASA, actually did have all the tools and all the knowledge needed to keep repairing it through its 15-year life. We clearly did a pretty good job because Hubble turned 30 last year and it's still going strong. But I wanted to bring to light this missing piece. I wanted to show, sort of counter to the stereotype, how much creativity and imagination and inventiveness goes into engineering. It's not the dull, boring, crank things out kind of a career path that so many people seem to think it is. And this little squad of engineers that I worked with, we brainstormed, we tested, we tried, we took things in the huge swimming pools that we use to simulate zero gravity and be able to practice spacewalks. Of course, the first several things we did broke or didn't work. We had to step back and think again. And that was such a wonderful, frothy, creative, challenging process that set up this foundation for Hubble. I also wanted to write the book so that my life story would carry you along and how you feel like you were on this adventure with me. I think the best introductions to spaceflight that I've come across otherwise are the IMAX movies, which the best of them really have always made me feel like I was a little person perched on that astronaut's shoulder and going through the adventure of a mission with them. And that's the feeling I hoped to give readers as I wrote Handprints on Hubble. Take you with me, be part of the experience as if you were right there in the middle of it. So I see this book as really sort of a three-stranded memoir, if you will. There is a tale of my life as the vehicle of bringing these other people and these other stories to the foreground. But there's also a life story, if you will, of this extraordinary telescope and the vision that started it. The vision for Hubble started before there was such a thing as a space age. Talk about testament to the imagination and creativity of an engineer. Werner von Braun and Lyman Spitzer foresaw a Hubble before anything had ever been launched into space at all, and then stuck with that vision and helped propel it forward until it became a reality. So that life story of Hubble itself parallels, and I discovered syncs up in some fun ways with key moments in my own pathway. And then finally, I wanted to intertwine at least vignettes of some of these fascinating people whose names you've never heard of. The ninth of 12 children born to a migrant farm working family in San Antonio, Texas, who's told, as a Hispanic youth at that time would be, loved airplanes, loved cars, was very good with his hands and tinkering, but people like him don't become engineers. So he's advised to go become an engineering draftsman. He can draw the drawings for other people who will be the real engineers. But along the pathway, just pursuing that passion and building his skills, his talents become apparent to the people around him he's working with. They finally encourage him to go to college, get a degree. He goes on into the Navy and ends up at NASA just at the dawn of the space shuttle program, and goes on to become one of the real wizards of tool design, still there today, still driving the world of spacewalking tools forward. All of these people, they were mainly men, but all of them came to Hubble through very unusual paths. One was a train yard kid. One was a trash hauler's grandson. Most of them were car or motorcycle enthusiasts who, again, pursued that passion, that desire to create things and tinker with things and make interesting gadgets and devices work, and then seized opportunities when they came and found themselves designing and building and repairing and maintaining the Hubble Space Telescope. It is the most productive observatory that has ever been built. It has done more than any single other instrument to completely transform our understanding of the universe. So that's the tale of Handprints on Hubble. And maybe a note about the title and why I gave it that name. It turns out there actually are handprints on the outside of the Hubble Space Telescope now, from the dozen or so spacewalkers that worked on her over the years, repairing her and exchanging instruments. Where their glove touched the shiny, bright outer skin of Hubble, it would scuff it just a tiny bit. And the strange environment of space, the bombardment of energy from the sun, would weather those scuffed patches a little bit differently than the shiny bits, and they would turn smudgy, dark gray. So the people I write about in this book, they metaphorically, I would say, have a handprint on Hubble because it is their handiwork. Made the observatory possible and made its life extension and its continual improvement possible. And their metaphorical handprints, to me, are partners, are companions to the physical handprints that the spacewalkers have left on the telescope. Hubble today is about 1,000 times better instrument than the one that we put into orbit back in 1990, thanks to this creativity, this inventiveness, and the efforts of all of these folks. So I hope that your students, if they read this, will maybe get some insights about how odd and varied their life path may be. What is that combination of building on your strengths and shoring up your weaknesses that maybe can take you to a very different destination than you ever had imagined was possible, as happened to me and most of these young engineers. And how fantastic, how exciting, how great it is to be part of a team that marries so many diverse strengths and talents to make something so much greater than any of you, the individuals, happen and make it real and add it to humanity's store of knowledge. So I hope you enjoy it. And thank you again to everyone at Penguin Random House for having us here today. I look forward to hearing my fellow authors. And go banana slugs.